Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a thrilling and suspenseful journey with The Tenant by Freida McFadden, a story full of twists, secrets, and unexpected betrayals that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Whether you're a fan of psychological thrillers or just love a good mystery, you're in the right place. Get ready for an in-depth, chapter-by-chapter exploration that unpacks every twist and turn, so make sure you're comfortable and ready to get hooked from start to finish. Let's jump right in. Blake Porter had it all, or so it seemed. At 32, he was the vice president of marketing at a major company, living in a beautiful brownstone in Manhattan, engaged to Krista, a woman who had always been by his side. His life was the kind that most people dreamed about, successful, stable, and full of promise. But life has a way of twisting when you least expect it. One gray morning, Blake's world shattered. He was called into a meeting at work. His stomach tightened as his boss looked at him with cold eyes. "Blake, we have to let you go. There's been a leak of confidential information and the evidence points to you." Blake shook his head in disbelief. "That's not possible. I didn't do this." But no one believed him. Suddenly, the news spread like wildfire. His colleagues stopped talking to him. His phone stopped ringing. Even Krista looked at him differently, concern mixed with something else he couldn't name. Bills piled up. The brownstone, once his fortress, now felt like a prison. Krista sat him down one night, her voice steady but her eyes anxious. "We need to rent out the spare room. It's the only way to keep the house." Blake didn't want to admit it, but she was right. With a heavy heart, he agreed. Blake started the search for a tenant with mixed feelings. The idea of sharing his home, his sanctuary, with a stranger was unsettling. He sat in the living room, scrolling through applications, each one stranger than the last. There was the loud musician who rehearsed at all hours, the overly chatty woman who asked too many personal questions, and the man who seemed to have a secret he didn't want to share. Days passed, and Blake's hope dwindled. Then, Whitney Cross's application caught his eye. She seemed perfect on paper, polite, professional, and ready to move in immediately. When she came to see the apartment, Blake was relieved by her calm demeanor. She smiled warmly and assured him she'd be a good tenant. Blake thought maybe, just maybe, things would start to look up. But as Whitney settled in, strange things began to happen. At first, it was small things, a faint, unpleasant smell that seemed to come from nowhere. Blake tried to ignore it, blaming it on something rotting in the trash. But the smell lingered and grew stronger, like decay. Then came the noises. At night, when the city was quiet, Blake heard footsteps pacing the hall. Whispering voices echoed faintly, but every time he checked, the house was empty. He told himself he was imagining things, that the stress of losing his job was getting to him. Yet, the feeling of being watched didn't leave. Neighbors started acting strangely, too. Mrs. O'Connor, who once greeted Blake with a smile, now crossed the street to avoid him. A man from down the hall gave him a warning. "Be careful who you trust, Blake. Not everything is as it seems." Blake's heart pounded. Was someone trying to scare him? Why? One night, he found something that shook him to the core. A fresh blood stain hidden beneath the living room rug. His hands trembled as he lifted the rug. There was no way to explain it. Someone had been hurt, and it had happened right under his roof. Blake's mind raced. Who could have been hurt in his own home? He felt trapped, like a prisoner in his own life. The bloodstain was a terrifying puzzle piece that didn't fit anywhere. He confronted Whitney, hoping for answers, but her calm smile faded when he brought it up, replaced by a cold, unreadable expression. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said smoothly. Her eyes didn't meet his, and Blake felt a chill. Something about her didn't add up. At the same time, Blake's old life kept slipping further away. His former employer was relentless, accusing him of corporate espionage. His attempts to clear his name were met with silence or hostility. Friends disappeared. Krista grew distant, her once warm presence now a source of confusion and pain. Blake was alone. He decided to take matters into his own hands. Digging through Whitney's past seemed the only way to find the truth. What he uncovered shocked him. Whitney's real name wasn't Whitney Cross. She was Amanda, a woman with a history of deception and criminal activity. But the more Blake discovered, the more dangerous his situation became. It was clear someone didn't want him asking questions. One evening, as Blake returned home late, he noticed the door ajar. His heart slammed against his ribs. Inside, the house was a mess. Drawers pulled open, belongings scattered. It was a warning. Blake knew he was in deeper than ever, caught in a deadly game. Blake's trust was shattered, but he couldn't give up. He reached out to a private investigator, hoping for some clarity. The investigator uncovered more unsettling facts about Amanda. She was involved in an elaborate scheme, one that went beyond simple deception. There were ties to Krista, Blake's fiancée. The truth hit Blake like a freight train. Krista was not the woman he thought she was. Krista's sudden coldness, her secretive phone calls, and her insistence on renting the room to Amanda all began to make sense. But the revelation was almost too much to bear. Why would Krista betray him? What was she planning? As Blake confronted Krista, the pieces fell into place. She was the mastermind behind the entire plot to ruin him, driven by a hidden grudge, years of resentment, and a desire for revenge. The house became a battlefield of lies and emotions. Blake was torn between love and suspicion, desperation and determination. The twisted game Krista had set in motion was spiraling out of control. Whitney, Amanda, revealed her true self, no longer hiding behind polite smiles. She was cold, manipulative, and dangerous. Blake realized he was trapped in a nightmare designed to destroy him piece by piece. The tension exploded in a final confrontation, raw and heart-wrenching. Blake fought for his survival, exposing Krista's betrayal and breaking free from the web of deceit. But victory came at a terrible cost. Krista's plan ended in tragedy, her death leaving Blake scarred and alone. In the eerie silence that followed Krista's death, Blake was left to face the wreckage of his life. The house, once filled with hope and dreams, now echoed with memories of betrayal and loss. Though the nightmare had ended, its shadows clung tightly. Blake spent sleepless nights replaying everything. How trust had turned to poison, how love had masked a deadly agenda. The people he once believed in had become strangers, and he was forced to rebuild not just his life, but his very sense of self. Slowly, he began to piece together what remained. The brownstone felt less like a prison and more like a place of possibility again. Though scarred, Blake realized he was stronger for having survived the ordeal. The Tenant is a powerful exploration of how betrayal can unravel even the strongest lives, and how resilience can rise from the darkest moments. Blake's journey is a gripping reminder that appearances deceive, trust is fragile, and sometimes the greatest battles are fought within. Freida McFadden weaves suspense, emotion, and psychological twists seamlessly, keeping readers riveted to every page. The story's layers of mystery and personal conflict make it impossible to look away until the very last word. As Blake's story shows us, life can change in an instant, and the people we trust the most might not always be who they seem. The Tenant by Freida McFadden is a thrilling journey through betrayal, resilience, and the fight to reclaim one's life against all odds. If you love stories that keep you guessing until the very end, this book is definitely for you. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into The Tenant. If you enjoyed this detailed review and want more gripping stories, insights, and full-length breakdowns, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support means the world and helps me bring you even more exciting content. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.